Welcome to Kevin at 7, where we help you find your superpowers. You can master getting yes without the BS. You want to make today powerful? You seize it. How do you conquer fear? That is the conversation that we're going to have today. I have been a chicken most of my life. That's just the truth. I was a chicken. Because when I was a little kid, we were very protected. We raised chickens too. And I can remember coming home one day from school and seeing the field, the open area up under the trees between the chicken house and our house, and it was covered with dead chickens. And there were some stray dogs. We chased them off, but we had all the chickens were dead. I mean, every one of them. They were all dead. And my mind was blown. I just can remember to this day just bawling, because you're like, it was our first or second time to ever raise chickens, and I was just like devastating. And we finally found 4 of the little chickens that had managed to find a little spot in the chicken house where they climbed in this little gap between some metal and the wall, and they'd gotten down in there, were literally stacked, 4 of them on top of each other, like I mean, tighter than sardines. I mean, literally. And we found them like hours later. We heard the cheep cheep, and they were stuck and they couldn't get out, but they saved themselves. But one thing I have learned about chickens is that chickens aren't very good at fighting for themselves. They're not a predator for sure, they're a prey. Right? Now, I've been attacked by a rooster, but that's a little different. And I was the chicken when that happened. But I realized growing up I was a chicken. And the reason I was a chicken was because my parents, when I got beat up by a bully in my first day of 3rd grade, my parents taught me not to fight back. And so you can't stand up for yourself. You can't fight. You have no choice but to be fear, to hide. And so the emotion that dominates whenever you face a threat is fear, right? I mean, that's self-preservation. And so when you can't fight for yourself, when you cannot stand up for yourself, and you face danger, the only potential reaction is a fear response. So remember, there's freeze, flight, or fight, right? Those are the 3 fear responses. Freeze, fight, flight, or fight. Freeze, fight, or flight. I don't know what the order is. Freeze is the most immediate that most of us have. And that is when you face fear, you freeze, okay? So we talk about fight or flight syndrome. It's actually freeze, fight, or flight. And so the first instinct is to freeze, and then to flee if you're a prey, and to fight if you're like cornered or you have to fight. Well, I was not given the option of fighting. So what happens when you're 8 years old and the option to stand up for yourself, the option to fight is taken away from you? What happens? You have no recourse but fear. To give into the fear and either freeze and hope you don't get noticed, or run away. So that became the way I responded to conflict, the way I responded to confrontation. Just like the chickens when the stray dogs came. They had no way to defend themselves, and so it was freeze or flight. 4 of them managed to flee and get away, and the rest of them died that day. There was like 48, we had 48 chickens total, and 44 of them died. Were killed that day. And what I have discovered is that the world has changed, and I used to be one of the scaredy cats. I was one of the chickens. And I got called that, in other words, worse than chicken, as I was growing up in junior high, and mostly in junior high. That was the worst, because by the time you get in high school, people would just kind of pretty much dismiss you and go like, you're a wimp, and other words that they use to describe wimps and chickens, and wuss and worse. And that's what they would use. And they just dismiss you. But I learned how to be afraid and give in to fear, and that's all I could do is freeze or flee. And that's why I had so much failure in my life. I had so much misery in my life growing up, is because I would do okay until things got hard, and when things got hard, I would run away. So I've given into fear most of my life. And when I went skydiving with Julie 6 years ago, It was one of the first really like big times where I faced one of my biggest fears. I just looked it in the eye and I said, no more, I'm going, man. And I jumped out of the airplane, and it was kind of a breakthrough moment for me. But I realized I still give into fear a lot, and a lot of things I could do and a lot of opportunities I pass up because I'm afraid, I'm uncomfortable. And it's like, I don't want to do these things because it's uncomfortable for me. I don't want to make this phone call, or I don't want to have this conversation, or I don't want to go to this place, or I don't want to do this video because I'm afraid, I'm uncomfortable of what people might say or how people might think or what people might think of me. And so I wouldn't do it. So this year, 2019, one of my declarations or one of my commitments is that I will stop, and I wrote this down, I shared this with you guys on a live stream earlier, is I will stop being scared. How do you stop being scared? Here's how you stop being scared: by facing the fear and doing it anyway. Go, boom. Face the fear, whatever makes you afraid, and then do it. Now, I'm not talking about doing something stupid. I'm talking about doing something that's hard, doing something that's out of your comfort zone, doing something that's great, doing something that could potentially be awesome, but you're scared of it. Now, for some of you, it's just picking up the phone and calling a stranger. That makes you wet your pants. Right? So here's the challenge. Here's the face your fear challenge. Because how do you conquer fear? How do you stop being afraid? How did I stop living in fear of everything and everybody and every potential, what people thought and all that? How do you overcome it? And the answer is from a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, and that is action conquers fear. And this is what he said. He said, do the thing that you fear, and the death of fear is certain. Action conquers fear. You want to overcome your fear? Do it. Take action. Do not give in to your fear. Do not relent from your fear. Do it. Action conquers fear. So here is the freedom from fear, or the face your fear challenge. So I think if you can get free from fear controlling your life, you are unstoppable. And so this is the year for that. This is your time. So what do? Every day, here's the face your fear challenge. Every single day, every day, do something that legitimately scares you. Do something that you're genuinely afraid to do. Do something that you don't want to do, but you know you should do because you're uncomfortable. And the thing is, you get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I've already discovered some of the things that I've done just in the last couple of days that I'm like, okay, now that wasn't so bad. So yesterday I did two things. Some of the things I do are personal, but I'll just give you an example. Like yesterday, one of the things I did yesterday was I had a conversation that I did not want to have. I was afraid of that conversation. And I had it, and it went well. And the thing is, I was prepared for however it went. I expected it to go well. I totally believed it would go well, but it was still a hard conversation. I was afraid. And then yesterday, I had to get a blood test. Now, from when I was a little kid, I hate needles. I hate them. I hate them with a passion. And so I can still hate them, but I'm not afraid of them anymore. But I used to be terrified of needles. And so one of the things I've never done ever is I have never watched. I've watched sometimes when I got a shot. But I've never watched my blood get drawn out. And the reason I haven't done that is because I saw somebody getting their blood drawn one time or getting an IV in, and the nurse dropped the thing, and I saw blood pour out, just like it was like a little trickle, like a little stream of blood. It wasn't much, but it was enough that I went, oh, and I got real queasy, and I'm at the hospital. I'm like freaking out, and I got real, what is it called, queasy, and I almost passed out. I'm like, oh man. And so I would, when somebody's drawing my blood, I'm like, it's just the idea of taking your blood. It's like taking your life, right? So it's almost like, so I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous for me to be afraid of this. Because every time I go to get either give blood, which was a big breakthrough for me last year, was I actually started giving blood, or when I would go to get a blood test. So they take 2 or 3 vials of blood. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not looking. And I would just turn my head away, and I would just be fine. I'd let them do it. I got to where I could at least do it that way. So this time I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to let my fear stop me. I'm going to look at it. Boom. And I watched. And I watched her with that needle in my vein, the blood being drawn out, and I'm like, what's the big deal? But every single day, do something that you're afraid of and then write it down. This should be part of your journaling of your wins every day, is I'm writing down the stuff that I'm doing every day that I was afraid to do, but I did it anyway. And I've been thinking about what am I going to do today? And I think it's going to be work, because right now I got lots of stuff I'm afraid of. But as you get better at it, and some of you are not, some of you are more courageous and you've been taught to fight for your dreams and so forth, more than I was. But for some of you, it'll be easier, and some of you, it's going to be hard to find something that you're afraid of. My friends, crush the fear. The way you crush the fear is you just attack it. You fight for your dreams. You attack the fear. You see something you're afraid of, and if it's something you want to do, something needs to be done, you do it. You don't hesitate. You don't pause. The only reason that you should ever pause in front of fear is if there's real danger. If there's your emotions going like, okay, there's a risk here. You know, don't do something. Again, I'm not talking about something stupid. I'm talking about facing something that's uncomfortable for you that you don't want to do. Do it, and you're going to win.